7 years ago, I told Sprout Social, this is the future of social media, is this whole, what we now call social care or social media customer care or social media customer service. Essentially, it's the acquisition and retention of customers through social media efforts. It's social only, right? But it fits holistically into, your whole CX plan. And just now they're coming to market with their, big social care push. Hey everybody, it's me, Brooke Sellis, and I'm super duper squared, right, to the second power, excited to be having this show with you because this is our 1 year anniversary show. Woo! So excited. And today I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So I'm actually bringing on Carlin from a previous show. Carlin, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm ready to flip the script, Brooke.
Oh, I'm so excited. A little bit nervous, not going to lie, but I'm so excited because Carlin is going to interview me today. I'm the surprise guest. And the reason why I invited Carlin to interview me was because Carlin actually has the most listened to episode, most downloaded, most watched episode from the first season. So last May until this May. So congrats, Carlin, on being so awesome. But also, why do you think that is? Why do you think you have the most downloaded, most watched show?
I think because I took the time to share the content over and over and over again, because the topic that we were talking about, which is all about scaling your agency with intention, is one that everyone cares about and is one that's always evergreen, meaning it's always relevant. And, if you're not going to share the podcast that you're going to be on and that your guest appearing on, why even bother, honestly?
Honestly, that is great advice. Because I will say, sometimes you think, oh my God, this is such an amazing show. And then the guest maybe shares it like once or never shares it at all. And you're like, wow, that was a whole hour of your life. Well, plus the pre-call. So that was let's just say that was a whole hour and a half of your life that you took the time to work on, but then didn't share it. So I digress. That's just our soapbox moment for the day. And now I'm going to turn it over to Carlin, and she's going to interview me. I'm a little scared. Okay, we got this. All right, Carlin, take it away.
I'm so excited to introduce you to the one, the only, Brooke Sellis. She is shaping the future of digital marketing one conversation at a time. As a CEO, she is the visionary behind B Squared Media, a boutique digital marketing agency that's redefining social care for industry giants like Brother International, Endless Pools, and BCU. With her groundbreaking, if you haven't read it, what are you even doing? 2022 book, Conversations That Connect, she's charting a course for authentic digital interactions. The whole being social on social media thing, that's her jam. So dive into her insights right here on this show, the Marketing Agency Show podcast, or for 1 or 2 courses she teaches at the University of California, Irvine. Welcome, Brooke, to the show.
Woo! This is so weird. Also,
no, I feel like I'm on the wrong side of the screen here.
I know that's my problem. I'm like, wait, why am I on that side? I'm doing something wrong. Oh no, it's because I'm the guest. Shoot. Oh. All right, take it away.
Okay. So the first question that we always start off with, right, is why did you decide to start your own marketing agency?
Well, it was 2011. I was working for another company as their marketing director and the director of social media. And I was tasked with creating social media revenue streams for her company, which was a sales and training company. And so we provided those services to her clients. And essentially, very long story short, my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, hi, Alex, and my dad, hey, Mike, came to me and they were like, you really should be doing this on your own. Like, you're working too many hours, blah, blah, blah. Longer story short, my dad finally came to me after like giving pushback on those things and said, hey, I got you a pitch meeting with the CMO at his company, which was a fintech company. And he was like, but here's the deal. I'm not helping it beyond this. Don't ask me for anything else. Like, I got you the pitch. You have a meeting. And the second part of the deal was, and if you close the deal, you have to do it on your own. like as a 1099 or a freelancer or start your own company, whatever. So long story short, again, for the third time, I won the pitch and basically went home that afternoon and started B Squared, and the rest is history.
I think that is phenomenal. And I know I don't have like a huge, story behind the name of Oh Snap Social. Do you have a story behind B Squared?
I do. That's so funny that you ask. So I have had many nicknames in my life. My full name, which some of you know if you've seen me speak on stage, is Jennifer Brooke. I was supposed to be Jenny Brooke because I'm from Texas and we have that whole like double name thing. But I never was Jenny Brooke. When I was born, my mom decided to just go with Brooke. So I've always been Brooke my whole life. So my nicknames have been like Brookie, Brookie Cookie, Brooklyn. And then some of my past clients and with the company that I worked for before I started B Squared Media would call me B Squared because my last name was Brooke Ballard. So that's where the idea of B Squared Media came from. And let me tell you, from an SEO perspective, it wasn't the greatest name. So don't name your company after you, especially if your name's going to change. Which, by the way, I'm Brooke Sellis now, and BS Media didn't quite have the same ring to it.
No, it does not. So, what kind of clients do you serve? And an aside question to that: how did you get more involved in that corporate side of the client attraction?
Yeah. So great questions, Carlin. Gosh, you're gunning for my job here. We serve, when we started, I thought I was going to do social strategy. So for my dad's company, I built out the social strategy and kind of handed it over to them. And I was like, okay, good luck. Thanks. Bye. And they called me 2 weeks later and they were like, yeah, no, we don't. We love you. We love the strategy, but we don't really have anybody here who can implement this. So we need you to just implement it for us. So very quickly, I realized it wasn't necessarily about the strategy. It was more about the action of doing, right? The done for you part of it. So we pivoted quickly and became a done for you agency. So the clients that we serve, that we got lucky off that first one because again, that was my dad's. It was from my network. That was an enterprise sized company. And then the next client we closed was a middle tier sized company, which was Alex's company at the time. So my advice there is really use your network, right? Figure out who you know. I actually have this networking sheet that I used to give to my volunteers when I worked in nonprofit. I filled that out myself, thinking about B Squared and the company and the services that I was going to offer, and then worked off of that worksheet to get my first, I think, 3 or so clients, which just happened to be in that middle tier enterprise size client range. But we've also worked with startups, mom and pop shops. I mean, we've worked with the smallest up to the biggest. Some of our biggest clients are multi-billion-dollar brands. And I think just because, to your point, Carlin, about the question of how did I get into corporate, I think because I started that way, that was just how I learned, right? I was a new entrepreneur and I was working at, much bigger companies. And so I think I just learned the dance, the corporate dance and the corporate lingo. And that carried into a lot of the processes that we have now, how I do certain things, the way I close deals, the way I speak, et cetera, et cetera.
I love that because I myself as well have really valued the relationships that I've built over time. And I am very much a connector, as are you. And so really taking the time to not just do one and done with connections, but just revisit, because that's how I've gotten a lot of the opportunities, even recently from gigs that I had 5, 6, 7 years ago. You just never know who other people know. And so always be open. So thank you for answering that, because I was also curious. I did not know. So when you founded B Squared Media 12 years ago, which congratulations, that's incredible. What was your vision for the agency? And, how has that vision kind of evolved, shifted, changed as the digital marketing landscape has also done the same of that shift and change?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll be honest, at first it was like, I wanted to work less than 80 hours and make more than, $20 an hour. That's the real answer. And that is why I started. But like once I got into it and I started, adding more clients on and we started to become really successful at what we did, I really wanted to, the vision was in the beginning to really become an extension of those companies, because at the time, and like you said, this was 12 years ago, we'll actually turn 12 in May this month when this airs. I really wanted to, so social was still kind of like new, let's just call it burgeoning. And I really wanted to be an extension of the team, that client's internal team, to help take the stress and the weight off of it, because social, even back then, was stressful. It's really stressful still. And I think that's still the vision today. Really, I want our clients to see us as a part of their team. Yes, we're an outsourced vendor, but I think more than that, we want to seamlessly integrate with the team that we work with internally, and we want them to look at us as more than a vendor, more than just providing a service. And I think, for a lot of our clients, we've been able to do that, and that fills my entrepreneur tank so much, to be viewed as a partner and not just a vendor.
So kind of a follow-up to that, how did you manage that relationship and that shift, not just of like the mindset of the client, but also those on your team, of like from vendor to partner?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So fun fact, Carlin actually has worked on our team in the past. And I don't know, as the normal interviewer, this might be cheating, but I'm going to cheat. I would turn that around and ask you, Carlin, like, how do you think we did it internally with the team? Because I don't know.
I mean, I think a few things is the trust piece. You trust your team, and you are still very hands-on in the relationships, like showing up to meetings and edifying the person on the team of like, this person's got you, they're taking care of you. And then from the social care perspective, I didn't do a ton of that piece of the work that I know is your bread and butter. And so that's where I think you guys are highly organized. Like the systems, the systems. Insanely awesome.
Thank you.
It's like, it's very organized, but it has to be when you're managing that type of client. Like they expect that higher level of service and people willing to put in the work and do it on their behalf, and that you're always learning and growing. And I think, when things go right and you shout them out and you're like, okay, we could have done that better. And here's plan B. And this is what we're going to do. So I think it's owning a lot of the systems and processes, building up and trusting your team, and edifying that team member to the client so that they also feel the trust. I think was huge when I was there. I mean, you guys have grown exponentially since then too. So,
but still, yeah. I mean, I think you're right. It's, I think what it boils down to, and this is not the sexy answer, but it's the processes, right? Like from the beginning, well, not from the beginning. Okay. I was about to lie. I'm not going to lie. Here it is. It's me, completely open. When it was just me, which it was with B Squared for the first 2.5 years, I want to say I was doing A to Z, right? The first time I hired someone, hey, Jennifer, Jennifer, and I hired her to help, be basically an account manager for the Done For You organic social media management. And I realized really quickly that I didn't have any processes. So I was 2.5 years in, and I had to take everything that sat in my brain. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I had to write it down and build it into processes that not only were easy to understand, like they couldn't be my lingo, right? Which I have a lot of weird lingo myself, right? but they had to make sense to Jennifer. And what I knew, thankfully, and I don't know how I knew this, but I just did. Maybe it was working with those corporate clients, but I knew it had to be repeatable beyond Jennifer. Because if we were to be successful the way I wanted us to, Jennifer was going to be the first of many people who joined the team. So I knew that I had to structure things in such a way, from literal sales to onboarding to doing to reporting to offboarding, like every little thing I built out into process steps. And then now those things that I built out all those years ago, and granted, we've made iterations, so plenty of change has happened, but those still, for the most part, get used as how we do the business. That's how we do the doing. And I think that's really it. It's like you said, it's just being organized, which I know is not a sexy answer, but y'all, I'm telling you, that's why we're here 12 years later.
Yeah. And to that effect, like when I was on the inside of B Squared, I learned like the power of the process, because I was like, okay, how can I like implement this? Because eventually I left B Squared because I was like, okay, I feel like I'm empowered. I see the light. I can make this happen. And Brooke has always been in my corner and the biggest cheerleader ever. So thank you, Brooke, for being that for me. Yeah. And I went out and I was like, the first thing I needed to do was how can I make this, to your point, work beyond me? Knowing that at that point, I was like going to get married at the end of the year. I was like, I'm going out for 3 months. How can I, just leave my business baby sitting there and feel like my clients can be taken care of? And that was the biggest lesson that I learned from the inside out, if you will. So
yeah, well, thank you for that. It's true though. Yeah, and I was your biggest supporter, which I also think that's a piece of it too. And I don't know how to put that into words, but I think you have to support your people. And, as you get bigger, that does become harder. And now that's not me, to be honest, like that's Alex, but it got so big and I couldn't do all of the sales and all of the marketing and all of the ops with the team successfully anymore. So knowing that I had to bring someone in and again, to be wholly honest, for 2 years, I feel like we were probably like limping along because it was so much on my plate. And then once we put Alex in, I realized like, wow, I should have given that up. I should have delegated that part a long time ago. So know when to delegate, know when you need to let go and just do it. I know it's hard, but it really made all the difference.
I can hear. I will attest to that. Looking back now, can you share one or maybe two pivotal moments or campaigns that you really feel set the stage for B Squared Media's identity and, set that agency apart from other competitive markets? Nope. Define B Squared Media's identity and set the agency apart from the competitive digital marketing space. There we go. I got it.
Yeah, I was picking it, but you were putting down. Honestly, I think social care. So you're hearing it all now, right? It's finally come to market. Sprout Social just released their huge customer social care campaign. They're a social media tool, a dashboard. I've used Sprout Social since I was at that first company that I mentioned. So then when I started B Squared, I used Sprout again. So I've been with Sprout for well over 12 years, I think, since they were new. And I started telling them, it was about 8 years ago, I guess, 7 or 8 years ago, when we started to hear like little whispers from our clients. I was hearing this, I guess. And I say we a lot because it takes a team. It really is a village. But I was hearing these little whisperings and they would say things like, we love your content, but we have an in-house design team. So we don't want to pay for that part of the service because our team's going to do the design. Or we have a copywriter on staff. We are going to use them for the copy. We only want you for the design. And as they were saying these little like tweaks, they kept saying stuff about community management. It was like, and everybody has a different name for it, right? I think this is why, so it was like community management, social media moderation, comment, engagement activities, whatever. But they wanted us to go beyond just like, the normal, like when somebody comes to the page and asks a question on the post or DMs the page or whatever it is, to respond. They wanted us to like go out and make comments, like go out and actually engage as the brand. And I started realizing that there was like this there. And I knew it wasn't just community management. I didn't really know what it was. But I started to, and I told Sprout this, like, oh my gosh, all those years ago. So like literally, I'm telling the truth here. 7 years ago, I told Sprout Social, this is the future of social media, is this whole, what we now call social care or social media customer care or social media customer service. Essentially, it's the acquisition and retention of customers through social media efforts. It's social only, right? But it fits holistically into, your whole CX plan. And just now they're coming to market with their, big social care push. So we were really, really, really early to market. And I stuck with it for like 6 years. We beta tested it for like a year or two. And then 6 years ago, we actually went to market with social care as a service. And we haven't had any clients, knock on wood, churn since we've done that, because I really do think this is the social future of social media.
Yeah. And it's such a manual lift for so many companies.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to outsource that type of activity over time. And not to churn one client, whoo, girl, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think they just see the value right away. Like social lives 24/7, and brands are trying to be 9 to 5 brands in a 24/7 world. And it doesn't go well. And I also think, more and more people are using social media, especially during the pandemic, obviously, like to do their online shopping, and they use social to complain, which we all see all the time.
Yeah. And they expect instant result,
Yes.
like instant response.
Yeah. And if somebody's not there covering that, it really does affect your brand's reputation. So yeah, that's my soapbox moment. Second one for the day, but I'll try to leave it at that.
We love those. More soapbox. # soapbox moments. Okay. Now let's shift a little bit into the podcast, right? How has hosting this podcast influenced the way you approach growth within your agency and the marketing strategies you advocate for?
Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how cool this is. Like, I understand that it's a job, right? And I got hired to do this thing, or I get paid to do this thing, but it really feels like, I hope Mike's not going to listen, because I like getting paid for it. However, the payments really come in many forms. I learn so much from every single guest. And I'm not just saying that to say that. Like, I try to take mental notes during the call because I try not to write too much, but sometimes I cannot help myself if like I'm getting more than one good nugget, and you'll see me kind of like sneak my pad and pen over and start like scribbling stuff down, because I feel like this is the whole point of the show. There's no playbook for us. It's really hard to come and do what we do in a world where it is constantly changing. The algorithm changes, the interface changes. You can't do this now. This changed. This metric doesn't exist anymore. This is the new metric. I mean, it's so hard to do what we do and to have the wealth of knowledge that we've had on the show, and to be the person who gets to extract that story and that wisdom from people is a gift. And I really, truly learn something every show. So I want this show to become like one of the top listened show. Selfishly, yes, but also really, truly because, Carlin, I can't tell you how many people have listened to your episode and told me how much that episode meant to them, like how it changed them. Wow. So I love that. That it fills my tank. I'm really happy, and I learned so much.
I'm super appreciative that this podcast exists for the similar aspects that you just said. Like, it is constantly changing. And thank you for saying, like, it's hard. Mm-hmm. It is hard to run a social media agency in today's landscape because it is constantly evolving and changing. And then we have to be the bearers of either good or bad news to our clients and have to explain it to them who are not social savvy, which is why they hire us to do the work. Mm-hmm. But also, it's not always this crystal ball that we have access to. So if only we were actually, scratch that. I don't want to be in Zuckerberg's brain. Never mind.
No.
Like, I don't.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. I'm subscribed. Yeah. So in the same vein, what have been some of the most significant milestones for your agency in the past year? And how did the podcast kind of play a role in achieving those?
It's interesting. I feel like I've always kind of like flown under the radar because I had to, right? Like, kudos to those agency owners who can be on like the keynote stage at 15 different shows every year and still do the doing. Maybe they don't do the doing though. See, this is what I'm wondering. This is deep thoughts with Brooke Sellis. Until Alex came on board and I was able to pass the ops stuff off, because it was me literally for 10 years. I was doing the marketing, the sales, and all of the ops, the hiring, the, processes, everything. So I really think the biggest milestone for me was bringing Alex on 2 years ago and getting to hand all of that ops stuff off, because then I got to write the book, right? And once I wrote the book, I had a great story to speak on stage. I was able to go put abstracts together and turn them in to try to get on stage. And then once I got on stage, I got on stage more. It just became like this snowball effect. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier, just like you have to delegate. I know how hard it is to let go, but good things come when you allow yourself. Every single person, in my mind, who's an entrepreneur has a book. They have that in them, whether it's a tiny book or a how-to book or a big book or whatever it is. I feel like everybody has a book in them. Everyone can write. If you can't write well, there's now AI. There's a million wonderful copywriters out there who can help you, kind of zhuzh what you've written. And I think everybody should do it, because if you can find the time to do that and just speak your power, what your power is in your process, it's just like Carlin said, I feel like that is what everybody should be doing. All entrepreneurs should be doing. So I just think, to answer the question in a shorter answer, delegating allowed me to get where I wanted to be. And that doesn't necessarily mean on stage, but that is where we close a lot of clients. And I'm still the only sales team. So for me, the stage is important because that's where I close a lot of business.
I love that. And so would you say, just to kind of double down on this, delegating to Alex all of the ops things was like the game changer that allowed you the time and space and energy and focus to have the book in order to get more access to stages, et cetera?
Yeah, 1,000%.
Okay.
It was a lot. It was just a lot on my plate. And what I can admit now, I am a very personable person. I'm a very likable person, which everybody knows I hate, but whatever. But I am not a good people person. I am not a good manager of people. And it took me a while to realize that. I would say it took me until Alex was in for a year and I was like, oh my gosh, he is so much better at this than I am. I should have given this up a long time ago. So I think understanding your strengths and your weaknesses and being honest with yourself about what those strengths and weaknesses are, because just because I'm personable and I'm likable doesn't mean I'm the best people person.
I am of the same camp. I'm like, managing people, totally not my jam. Not my thing. But I like hanging out with people. I like my team. Sure. I like communicating with them, but managing them is not the task for me. So yes, highly recommend. Give it to somebody else if you know that is, from your self-awareness standpoint, not your jam. So moving forward this is one of my favorites. What are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned from your guests that you've applied to your own agency? There's so many juicy nuggets in those episodes.
I know. Oh man. Okay. Let me try to make this short. Let me think. Okay. One was definitely video. Everybody kept saying video. Video. It's been on my to-do list for more than 2 years. And I think doing this podcast actually made me a little bit more comfortable with video because I'm on video. We do video and audio. So you could be watching this on YouTube, or you could be listening on say Apple Podcasts, but it always has a video episode. So I got a little bit more comfortable with having myself on video. If you've been listening for a while, you also know I don't love my face and my voice. I actually just got a speaker review recently that said my voice is very annoying. Well, yes, I know that because I also hate my voice, but unfortunately it's the only voice I have. So this is what I have to come with.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I can't change it. The other thing I would say that I learned was, oh my God, ICP. So many people were talking about the ICP, your ideal customer profile. Samantha Stone mentioned it. Oh gosh. Tom from StrataBeat mentioned it. I'm trying to think. There's so many episodes where people really talked about knowing your ideal customer profile. And I actually used Samantha Stone and her services to help us come up with one. And then once we did, I feel like everything just got 20 million times easier because we knew who we were talking to, truly. And then the third one, I'm trying to stick with 3. So video, ICP, and niching down, which I think this comes after the ICP, right? A lot of people also talked about niching down. Tom with StrataBeat talked about cutting 50% of their clients to only then grow by over 200% because they, started talking to a specific group of people who they were doing services for. I think niching, doing the ICP, putting a focus on customer care through social, And then really we're only marketing those services. I mean, we still close services for other deals, but just putting all of our eggs in that basket. And who knows, maybe one day we will only provide social care. I don't know, but we could go in that direction.
I've always had a love-hate relationship with the idea of like niching down. And I'm going to go back and listen to that episode because I don't know if I picked up on it the first go around of it. But is that better to do like right out the gate? Like you're just starting your agency, or is that something that maybe takes some time to understand, formulate, learning?
I think it's for me personally, this is my personal advice, right? This is my opinion only, but I think it's better to do it after you're established, because I feel like in the beginning it's yes, because you got to get there, you got to pay the bills, you got to prove out your business. But I think after you're established, and I want to say like in year 5 we kind of hit a plateau, and looking back, when that plateau hits, maybe if it's year 2 or for you or 10 or whatever, maybe that's the time where I should have looked at my ICP. Instead I did it like 10 years in because, I'm a slow learner.
I'm like, I need to do an ICP. I'm going to be listening to her podcast again too.
Samantha Stone, go listen to her episode. She's amazing.
I feel like every time I listen to this show, I need to have a pen and paper at the helm, and I'm usually in my car and I'm like, I'm going to need to take mental notes. And I'm like, I get home or get to my destination, I'm like, what was that thing that was said?
Yes.
So I need to like re-listen to all of them so I can like actually take physical notes. So
I've literally started saying on the show, like hit pause. If you just heard that, hit pause. Rewind it, listen to it again, take a note, because like I can pick out those little moments now after doing this for a year. I feel like I'm really good at like kind of picking out some of those golden nuggets. If it gets me excited, if my little heart starts pitter-pattering, I'm like, let the audience know my spidey senses are going off and they should write this down.
Well, and in the same vein of like, you've used some of the guests that have been on here in their services and kind of their ideologies and methodologies. In what ways had the podcast really opened up to new networking opportunities or, strengthen existing relationships that you've had for years at this point within the marketing industry?
Oh man, you with the tough questions. I think that, networking now has kind of shifted almost for me, because when I'm talking, when I find out that when I'm talking to someone that they're an agency owner, I'm immediately like, how can I get this person on the podcast? I like go into like podcast mode and I'm like, tell me more. Oh my gosh. What? Really? Hey, that's amazing. Would you like to come on the show? And I feel like a lot of people, you would not believe how many people I've asked to be on the show and they've passed. And that makes me sad, because some people feel like they don't have a story to tell. No. And I feel like everybody has a story to tell. Yes. If you are listening and watching, I don't care if you're in month 1 or year 100, especially if you're in year 100, you got some stories. And everybody needs to hear those stories, because I just feel like we're fumbling around in the dark until we start to, find our Carlins or join our masterminds or find a podcast like this. I feel like it's a lot of stumbling, and man, I'm clumsy, but I would rather not stumble if at all possible.
And I feel like this podcast really opens up obviously a wealth of knowledge, but also this feeling of like, I'm not alone in all of this, which, this camaraderie is so needed in the industry, because owning an agency and operating an agency, you often feel like you're operating in a vacuum and that like there's no one around that understands what it is that you're doing. Because yes, there's like loads of freelancers out there, but there's something different when you shift from that freelance side, being like a one-woman show, to growing a team, growing services, managing big wig clients. That's just like a different level, and you want to be seen and heard. And a podcast like this definitely gives us some insight into how others are doing it, what they've learned over time. So if you've been on the fence about being a guest, like, don't be.
Reach out, y'all.
Yeah, let's do it.
So LinkedIn and reach out. Oh, can I say something really quick, Carlin? Yeah. You said something in your episode that really struck a chord with a lot of people, from what I've heard. You said you were really striving to get to that $1 million point in revenue. And then finally, after I think you worked with a coach, but finally at some point you came and you said, why am I Like, what's
Why?
the point? And it's because on social, you see all this glamorous agency owner content where they're sitting by their Ferrari and talking about how they make 7 figures a month. And I'm sorry, I know plenty of social media influencers who are flat broke. Who have giant followings, and people hang on to their every word and they can't pay their next bill. So I think that's a great point. I wanted to have the show be the curtain opener and show people what it really is. And I don't have a Ferrari and I'm not broke, but sometimes I'm like, ooh, gotta close a client real soon here or mama's gonna have to sell some purses.
Yeah, I mean, it's until you really realize what your true why is and your North Star of like why you got into business in the first place, like you will spend time and energy running on a hamster wheel and for no reason. Like it just, so I like polished up my why and like kind of, got the fingerprint smudges off of it. And I was like, okay, it's clear. Now I know where I'm going. And I just muted all those naysayers and those gurus out there that are like, you need to post 30 reels in 30 days. And like,
no,
you don't.
You. No.
Plot twist, you don't. And you also don't need to have like 100,000 followers to have a successful business.
Real plot twist, you actually do not.
No. That was funny. I just did a reel like that made fun of that factoid and people like, oh, you got me. I'm like, because it was like how I grew to 40,000 followers in 2 days. And then I was like, I didn't, but I still have a successful agency.
Yes.
It's real. It's real.
Yes. Mm.
So thinking about, this personal leadership side and the philosophy and how that's all shaped the entire culture of B Squared Media, what lessons, I love this question, this is juicy. What lessons have you learned about leadership? Because, for me, leadership is one of my, a task and a skill that I'm always trying to improve, especially when it's in a dynamic environment of digital marketing and running an agency.
Yeah, this is a toughie because, I honestly feel like I'm hard on myself that I feel, if I'm being honest, I don't feel like I'm the best leader a lot of times. And that's because if you've ever done the EOS, read any of their books, Entrepreneur Operating System, I believe is what it stands for. Yeah. I'm the visionary, not the implementer. Mm-hmm. So I played the visionary and the implementer for 10 years. But once Alex came in and took over as the implementer, I really settled into my visionary role. And that means I move fast and break things. And that also means I'm expecting everybody to keep up with me all the time, and I'm wondering why they're not. And I might not be the best at giving, really good context or instructions because I'm running so fast. So not only am I like, why aren't you keeping up? I'm like screaming instructions, as I'm flying by, and some people don't get what they're supposed to do. So I think leadership for me is a really big work in progress. Because I need to slow down sometimes, not always. Sometimes I'm doing the right thing by running fast, but I need to slow down and I need to I actually need to take a pause when it's time for me to ask for something because I need to make sure that I'm communicating it in the best way. And you can't really do that while you're running.
Yeah. I learned that as well. I'm like, what do you mean you can't read my mind? Like it's the same thing when you're developing the processes in the beginning, like you just have to get all that stuff downloaded. But I think what you have said multiple times throughout this conversation is there's a level of self-awareness that's required for leading a team and being a visionary and shifting from the implementer and doer over to that visionary component. So I think that's really powerful too, just having that self-awareness. So if you don't know where you fit on like an EOS or a DISC or any of those types of, what is it, anagram, whatever.
And Enneagrams, I'm a 1.
Enneagram.
I'm a number 1, which is,
I don't even know what I am.
The get beep done person. Because I run so fast. Yeah.
On the DISC, I'm like a high D with a combo side platter of I. So it's like decision maker, decisive, quick, moving, but also have some empathy for people. So I just always have to like remind myself, to your point, slow down, take a pause, explain clearly, because if you take that time, the output will be a lot better.
Yeah, I need to take DISC again because I took it before I started B Squared and I was an I primary with an I secondary.
Oh my.
Rare. Yeah.
That is
So
rare.
I need to take that again. But then I also took predictive index, and it says I'm an altruist, which fits with the double I, right? Like everything I do is for the democracy. Like I'm happy when everybody is happy.
Yes.
Which is also something I'm fixing in therapy, but
That's another conversation.
That's another conversation.
So being that you've been operating, B Squared for almost 12 years when this is airing, with the insights and experiences gained from this podcast, how do you envision kind of the future growth and direction of the show?
Man, it's really the same as it has been, maybe because we're only a year in, but I want people to come on the show like you did or like we're doing today, like a lot of our guests have done. I really want them to pull back the curtain. Like I want to go beyond it's like the social penetration theory. Terrible name, brilliant concept. It's in my book. But it says as humans, we build relationships based off of 4 levels of disclosure. And the 4 levels are cliches, facts, opinions, and feelings. I feel like a lot of times, and we do this on our social pages, we do this in our lives, period. We stick to the cliches and facts, right? That's the easy, safe way to do things. It's the safe way to come on this podcast and answer these questions. But I feel like until we get to opinions and feelings, the show won't really grow the way I want it to. This is what you have to do with your social content. This is what you have to do in life. If you want trust and loyalty, whether it's with a person or from your customers as a brand or from your guest as a podcast interviewer, you've got to get to opinions and feelings. That is the place where trust and loyalty is born. And so if I want more people loyal to the show, but I also want value coming from the guests, I think we're going to have to get to the opinions and feelings. So I try to ask those questions. Sometimes I get, cliche and fact answers. Sometimes I get the opinions and the feelings, but I'm making a call to you. If you're willing to literally pull back the curtain and tell the ugly truth, I want you on the show.
Yes. And I will say, broke open my eyes. I think it was 2023 of Social Media Marketing World, where you talked all about the opinionated content. And I was like screaming from the virtual side of the screen. I was like, yes, all of that, but people don't want to take a stand because they're afraid of being ridiculed, or there's a level of fear there. But what I love about this podcast in particular is Brooke really is epic at creating kind of the safe space to just share. And I, as I say, she says, pull back the curtain. I say, spill all the tea. Means the same thing. Be as truth worthy as possible within a conversation, because opinionated content attracts people to you like a magnet, but at the same time, and the best part, it also repels people who are not for you. And that's my favorite part about sharing opinionated content is
dissolution is not a bad thing. It means you're getting you closer to your buying audience, to people who match with you on that opinion and feeling level, core value level. So dissolution, bye, Felicia. That's what I say.
Yeah. Bye, Felicia. So based on your unique experience throughout the years and balancing not just this weekly podcast and running your successful agency, what advice would you give a fellow agency owner like myself and others listening looking to innovate and expand their reach and potentially even grow their personal brand? I'm going to throw that in there as an aside.
Yeah. Well, I think especially, even before the book came out, I was always the say yes to the podcast person. And I think even now with AI, your personal brand, whether you want it to be or not, is going to become so important with your business, right? Because we now have 0-click content, right? When you go out and you search something about social media marketing or social media customer care, a lot of times, and if you have it implemented, it's rolling out for everybody. So trust me, you'll get it soon enough. The AI gives you the answer right at the top. So you've got the AI answer right at the top, literally the answer, 0-click content. It's answering your question right there. There's nothing to click on. Then you have the sponsored post. Then you have the highly organically ranked content. So I think it's going to become harder than ever from an SEO perspective for your brand to get out there. So if you could do it with your personal brand by saying yes to every podcast episode, sharing that episode when you've been on many, many times, and trying to become an influencer and a creator or a thought leader, whatever you want to call it in your own right. Like, I got hired for the show because, yes, I had the experience as an agency owner, but I think also because I had started to make a name for my personal brand, not just for B Squared. And I have to thank my mastermind for that. So Rich Brooks, Ron Callis, Andy Crestadina, thank you so much for pushing me into making me talk more about myself and not just B Squared, because I think that is an important part of the overall brand.
Well, going on that same vein, because I get this question a lot from clients, especially leaders who are having conversations with me, where is that line between the corporate brand, like I'm the CEO, the president of this corporate entity, versus, you know, I'm the CEO, but I'm also a mom and I'm also this. And I get that question a lot of like, where's that line blurred? So I'd love to know your answer to that, kind of as an aside here.
I think that's up to you. Nobody can tell you where that line exists. It exists within you. So wherever you're most comfortable, you know, I'm an open book. I can talk about, you know, therapy and this is what I did for this and this is how I failed. But I could also take ownership in how I failed. I don't ever need to blame it on anyone else. I'm the first one to fess up when I mess up. But I'm comfortable doing those things. You have to decide what you're comfortable with. And I think it's also something that's a give and take. I think sometimes the line moves further out and sometimes it comes further in depending on the situation. So it's
100% agreed. It's like, it's up to you where you put that line, but do show up for yourself and for your personal brand. Don't let it be radio silent, because as Brooke said, when she started stepping out, woo-wee,
that's when
unstoppable. All the happy dances. Dee, 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 dee. Awesome. Okay. So last thing, tell everyone where they can find you and what you're working on right now.
Oh my gosh. Well, y'all can find me on this podcast every single week. We drop a show every Wednesday. So please come join me and my amazing guests. I mean, I have to say, like, I learned so much, and I've been at it for 12 years. So if you're 12 years or less, I think you're going to learn something every show. I think you're going to learn something regardless, but that's my pitch. LinkedIn's where I spend most of my time. So you can find me there. Brooke Sellis, Brooke B Sellis, Brooke Sellis B Squared, however you want to search for it. And then our website is bsquared.media. And that's where you can find out all about the social care stuff that we're working on.
Awesome.
Carlin, you did such a good job.
Yeah, thank you.
This is kind of weird, not gonna lie. I felt like I was on the wrong side of the screen like the whole time, but thank you so much for interviewing me. Thank you so much for being our most downloaded guest so far.
Crazy.
If you want to beat Carlin's record, show up in my inbox, message me on LinkedIn, let me know you want to be on the show, and let's do the thing.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, take that challenge, you guys. I want to see it.
Bye, everyone.